Okay, we are back from recess and we left off with Senator Brown had a question about accommodation for these teachers. Senator Brown, would you just like to restate your question?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Essentially, that was the question I was asking, understanding certainly the challenges that DOE is facing, but at the same time, I mean, hearing directly from these teachers what they have had to go through. I just wanted to inquire what steps, if any, has DOE taken to accommodate these teachers? How can we still have them engaged with their students and yet still address all these varying mandates that are being imposed upon the department?
So this has come up a couple of times. I guess the direct way of answering this is that the accommodations that you're talking about are actually directly addressed in the guidance received from DOA with regard to the status of those who do not comply with testing or vaccination. We'll review that again in light of this conversation. And I'm just glad. I mean, in the course of all of this, the employer, this vaccination mandate is a new thing, of course, for the island due to COVID. When it was implemented in September, we actually took our time to begin implementing it because we wanted to have the information available and provide it to our employees. So we didn't actually implement it until late October, as some of our folks have testified. And so in this first month of implementation, it's really been important for us to figure out how to just make things work and get this the mandate implemented, and then to see where we were with employees. So at this point, we've been trying to follow the DOA guidance to the letter with regard to the status of employees. But some of the issues related to the exemption requests and so forth, we need to look further into, and we've already contacted. I think I've already reached out to DOA even on this during this meeting for certain things we want to clarify. So when it comes to accommodations, my interpretation at this point is that it's spelled out in the guidance. It says this is what happens if employees do not, comply. But I understand what's being asked here to see whether there are any other ways to accommodate employees in light of our current status in terms of the numbers of who are already been vaccinated, already testing, and we wouldn't want public health's input and DOA's input into this matter. But for the first month, we just spent our time trying to implement it and seeing what we could do to incorporate that mandate as we try to get back to school. So that's where I'll leave it at this point.
Senator Brown.
Sorry, I just wanted to follow up because, I mean, when you do hear, and this is not the first time I've heard the concerns that have been raised by some of the teachers this evening. I mean, they've come and talked to us directly with regards to their concerns. And, maybe it might not be felt at the higher levels as consistently, but if you're that teacher and you're not getting any feedback, if you've submitted your application for an exemption and you haven't heard anything in weeks, a month, you're being told you can no longer be on campus and you have to remove yourself from being on campus, that would put a lot of stress on anyone. And even this process of testing, I mean, if those of us as senators that were not vaccinated had to go through this every week, I'm sure that mandate would change very quickly. If we had to be subjected to this, if we had to be alienated like this, I'm sure if the governor had to go through this, I don't think we'd have this process in place. But I'm not in agreement. And, I hope the legislature does revisit this issue because we're all challenged with the impact of this pandemic on our lives and how it's changed so much. And, we thought, hey, it'd go away in a few months. And here we are 2 years later, and we're still having to deal with it. But we can't move forward with this divisive process that has been put in place that literally is threatening the health and the financial welfare of certified teachers that we all know we need in the classroom. We need these teachers, and there's got to be a way deal. Like I said, when the kids were out of school, they were on Google Classroom and they were still able to do their lessons every day. I mean, my child from 8 to 3 every day. I mean, they didn't slack off at all with regards to making sure my child was educated, which I have to appreciate. But, from 8 to 3, I had to make sure I was there as much as I could to assist. So I can't see any reason why DOE can't look at these other accommodations so that children can still get educated educational professionals can still feel that they're involved and engaged and they're not being signaled out. Because if we continue on this way, I think we're going to continue to hear more stories like what we've heard tonight. And there's no reason, you know, in our level, our age, our profession of what we do, that people should be treated this way or made to feel this way. And I think that's the worst part of this pandemic, is how we're reacting to it as if this is law. This is, you know, it. I mean, I can still get COVID being vaccinated, and we've seen that happen time and time again. So I don't think that, you know, public health can say, oh, well, well, public health can't guarantee that even though I've been vaccinated, I'm not going to be a carrier. I mean, they're older members of my family I still have not gone to see, because I don't want to be the one that comes back, hey, you're the one who gave auntie so-and-so. I mean, we fear that. I don't want to, because of their age and their health. But I think while we're segmenting people, knowing that reality, I don't think it's right, and I don't think it's fair. And I think we should be doing whatever we can, because I don't know, Mr. Superintendent, I don't envy you. You got a big operation, a tremendously large operation to oversee. But if we this is the feedback you're getting from your certified teachers, so yeah, it'd be easier to get the vaccine, but maybe because of health and other reasons, they are choosing not to, and they're going against the tide. Their burden is even higher because they're going against the tide of everybody else. And they're having to stand up and be signaled out to the point that you're going to lose these good people. And I know you need them. I know you need them in the class. We need them in the classroom. So I just think the department needs to take a bigger step forward. And how can it facilitate? It doesn't have to be the most perfect, nothing is, but there's got to be a better way than having these professionals disenfranchised from their very profession of teaching. Because while we're addressing one mandate, we're not addressing the key mandate of DOE to make sure that our children are well educated. And that should be the first priority as well. Of course, their health and welfare is important, but there's got to be a way to make this work so that there's a happy medium. And until we get past this, or, you know, something better comes up from it, we don't segment and literally, like I said, we're turning our professionals into pariahs in their own school environment. Making them feel like, you know, you're the kid that didn't get selected to play on the team. And that has no place. We got enough burdens moving forward with this pandemic than to have our people feel that way, or enough to the point that they want to leave, that they're going to give up their investment of how many years they put in, you know, teaching, and literally leave the profession or leave Guam because they feel they have no recourse, because they just don't feel good every day by being treated like this. And I don't blame them. If the tables were turned and this was me, if this was Senator Nelson, any one of our other colleagues, I think we'd be doing something real quick about it, because we wouldn't like it either. And I'm just hopeful, Mr. Superintendent, that that's something you can look for sooner than later, to reach out to these teachers and make sure within your school system that information is facilitating, because there's a lot of people too on your team. You've got principals, you've got the assistant to the assistant. That wasn't there when I was a student at DOE. I mean, you've got so many other people in your infrastructure that can help facilitate that message. And I just think something needs to shift here. Otherwise, I think we're going to end up with more teachers not wanting to teach anymore. And I think we all see that as a lose-lose proposition. So with that, thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. I know it's been a long, long day for everyone. Thank you for allowing me to ask questions and make my comments. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Yes, Mr. Superintendent.
Yeah, and I appreciate all the points that Senator Brown is making. I just have to I mean, I think the thing I would have to push back on is that, you know, I think she is making a plea to GDOE specifically to figure out this issue, when it's a much broader issue at hand when it comes to a government-wide vaccination mandate. And, you know, when we were aware of this mandate, and we sought information and guidance, what it was a uniform, what it was supposed to be a uniform policy across all government agencies, you know, under the governor's, you know, line, you know, that we're not autonomous agencies. And so we moved consistently so as not to create confusion or create, you know, issues. So, you know, again, if the legislature passes a law or the governor passes a directive, we try to follow that directive. Now, asking us to depart from that really will take further conversation with public health and the governor's office and DOA to address those issues of concern. But it's not because DOE wants to lose educators. It's not because DOE wants. We want to get back to school. We want our kids back. We want it to be done safely. And when the governor and public health say this is what you can do to come operate safely, we try to comply, because our effort is to get all of our employees and all of our kids back into school. So now we're at a point where, you know, these issues are still pending. I'm glad for the opportunity to hear furthermore from the employees. I mean, sometimes, and I know the employees will note this, you know, we do get long emails with a variety of issues that we try to sort through. And I'm sure that all of those issues are, you know, a matter of interest to the employee. But, you know, there's differences between dealing with accommodations, dealing with the legality of an employee mandate, dealing with the science behind the vaccines and the proper legal status of the vaccines. It's hard for us to sort through by ourselves. So that's why for the employee, I know it's frustrating, because, you know, we're not going to be giving you, you know, advice on the vaccination's efficacy. You know, we wanted, you know, that's not our area. And so I think for the employees, I think that's maybe part of the frustration as you pose all these questions. And I know that DOE is not able to answer, you know, all of those questions. We kind of stick to our lane. But I think sharing your experience and sharing your concerns with the variety of players who are here today, not just DOE, but all of the other agencies, hopefully we can use this dialogue to figure out whether there are, you know, changes are in order to address these concerns. So we are certainly available. We've stepped up, but we're stepping up in so many ways to try to address all the various mandates and requirements, especially during this pandemic. And so you have a team here who's, you know, here late to try to figure out what we can do to, you know, to address these concerns. And so I'm sure my team will take it up and, you know, just continue our conversation with public health to see what we can do to maintain the safe campus and to deal with the concerns brought up today. So thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. You know, I appreciate that. You know, I understand that when the legislature passes laws, you know, GDOE complies, but also GDOE does provide insight in certain situations where perhaps the law may not be amenable. And so, you know, I just don't understand if there's really a claim that there's only 3 teachers and it's true. And if this claim is true that there's only 3 teachers, we're getting a bunch of different numbers now of how many teachers that are not vaccinated and so forth. The numbers are varying now, but if it is true that it doesn't seem that it's a huge burden on the public, or to try to advocate for something that's you know, that, I mean, Ms. Rojas testified that she's having headaches and enduring other symptoms from the constant testing that she has to undergo. So, I mean, I think I think we can work together. I think we can find something with DPHSS, especially when this is not uniformly implemented throughout the government. And I think that's the huge challenge that we just can't connect with, especially with DPHSS, how they're saying, well, we give them these mandates and they, you know, we give them these recommendations, and whatever they do with it, then they're going to do with it. But I mean, we can also at this position, like, advocate for there's no uniformity. Where's the consistency in the mandate itself? But I'll move over to Senator Duenas. Senator Duenas, please, if you have anything to say, please proceed.
Buenas, Madam Chair. I want to thank you for your leadership in this issue. I think it's important, first and foremost, for me, watching the series of questions that have been posed and exactly what you just stated, the lack of uniformity on the implementation of the policy to disclose, because there's been questions about the legislature. I am a COVID survivor. I am now 14 months, thank be to God, multiple time tested, tested negative for contact tracing and other circumstances. I am an unvaccinated senator. That is not a secret. But I am a COVID survivor, and I trust my God-given ability to have a resistance to this virus. My staff, thanks be to them, not under any coercion, decided on their own to become vaccinated for various reasons. I will not disclose that, but they chose to do that on their own. That was their choice. Madam Chairwoman, tonight, I think what's been demonstrated is exactly what I've been asking. I'm not here to promote myself. I'm here to promote the legislative process. That the voices that you've heard tonight, albeit some may say few, I think represent a huge majority out there of people who want to be heard, on a monthly basis. 20 months we have now been under these Emergency Powers Act. 20 months, people that have come out tonight to express their position because they've been pent up and wanted to have their voices heard because they're frustrated on a process that does nothing for them, on a bureaucratic process that stifles. I'm sorry, but I'm going to say your name, Miss Rojas, Marie Rojas. I mean, you honestly, along with all of the representation tonight, have represented, as far as I'm concerned, thousands of people throughout the island and throughout the government who just don't understand and don't see the logic behind the current public health emergency, not having a voice and not having a uniform process. I'm proud of the legislature for having a process to where we allow ourselves to follow the protocols, just like Ms. Santos talked about and put up. We do all those things in our office. I'm a 3-term senator now, and Senator Brown articulated things way more better than I could have said. But we don't have constituents flooding our office like we did before because they're scared too. They're following the protocols. They call our office. They set up appointments. We make reasonable accommodations for each and every single one of us to be able to protect ourselves. We all know what we're doing nowadays, but yet we're penalizing a small segment of our population because they have made the decision for whatever reason they have. This process is unconscionable and must stop. The legislature, and I thank Madam Chairwoman and others who have joined me in this process and saying, look, let's have a conversation about this. And when we go forward, even if we continue with an emergency, make sure it's modified and make sure it makes reasonable accommodations for all of those who are coming forward. And Mr. Superintendent, I agree with you. I know you have legal acumen. I know that you are an officer of the court. You are a JD. I know you understand the law and know what's going on. But I also was a director in the Department of Youth Affairs and other agencies. And I had people who were sworn officers who had to serve in serving our youth in a confinement area who contracted diseases later on that no longer allowed them to provide that service. But I didn't throw them out the door, and the law didn't allow me to do that. I put them in youth centers and other places where they could provide services to our children and live out their term of serving our people with dignity under reasonable accommodation. I won't soapbox, Madam Chair. I'll close it with this. You know, our island has been through enough. I will sit here until midnight, until 2 in the morning, whatever it takes to hear these voices, because these are the most important voices as far as I'm concerned, because they represent thousands of our people on the island who are tired of this. We understand the public health emergency. We understand what our island is going through. But what we don't understand is unreasonable mandates. And you know this more than anything else, and I hope I'm not trying to just say this to you, Mr. Superintendent, because I know you're trying to follow these mandates and go through it. But nationally, these mandates are being knocked down time and time again by courts. who have seen that these are unreasonable and they are not reasonable accommodations for our people. Not trying to chastise the Department of Education or anybody that's here tonight, Department of Administration, or those who have to implement. But I am personally tonight, Madam Chair, challenging the governor once again to stop these destructive policies. She has the power to implement an emergency with the alacrity under any circumstance when it bears witness. But 20 months is too much. And it's too much because we have forced the superintendent and we have forced others to have to live under these conditions because of the governor's mandate. And I know many of you are aware, I will call once again for the override of Bill 11, and I will call to make sure that we have these voices heard on a monthly basis for every emergency to be initiated, to where unreasonable mandates are being placed upon our people who only want to serve, live like everybody else. I remain open for questions if there's any questions from the medical professionals who want to question me on this, Madam Chair. But I have exhausted my time and I do not want to pontificate. But I wanted to get that on the record, and I'm so glad that those who have joined us tonight have let their voices be heard. It's not about numbers. It's about what is right. Just want to, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Senator Tardegui.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. I want to thank everyone who's here today. I'm not one to say very much, but I think Senator Brown, really did a good job on saying exactly what I wanted to say, and I greatly appreciate it. So I'm just going to ask some questions right now and trying to see what we can do here to make this work, actually. So I'm going to start with the Department of Education. You mentioned earlier, or not, you didn't, well, you did mention earlier about the numbers. Can you clarify these numbers that they're, if this is true, you have 148 individuals at DOA who are being tested weekly. Is that correct? 148? Mr. Superintendent, sorry, you're on mute. You're on mute, sir.
Yeah, let me just pull it up. It was what I put in the chat. Yes, those are the latest numbers.
Okay, 148 individuals who are having to go weekly to get tested. That's quite a bit. And then I heard you earlier, Mr. Superintendent, saying that to ensure that these students are not taking any leave from their own leave bank, and allow them to do this testing, like Mrs. Rojas has said earlier, taking 30 minutes of her own leave. It's almost like, these teachers are paying to work at DOE, having to take tests. I mean, go ahead, Mrs. Rojas, you were going to say something?
No, I'm sorry, I wanted to clarify. What I meant is, I don't know if it came out that way, but because I've been enduring the weekly testing, and because I felt like, they had to go all through that trouble to test me, and it was only me. Right. And then just other co-workers being upset with me and just telling me just to get vaccinated. I started to feel like they start to nitpick me. So what happened was one day, because when I sit there in the parking lot after testing, I'm waiting like 20 to 25 minutes for a result. So I figured to kill two birds with one stone, because on my way to drop them to the sitter, I'm passing my work. So I pull in, I told myself I should just get tested, then, go drop the kids and come back. When I did that, I was told I had, because I wasn't on campus, I had to sign 30 minutes personal leave. And so I just felt it was just a part of like targeting me, because I feel like everyone's upset that I'm not vaccinated. So it's like I'm a target. And I know other teachers get away with other stuff, and nothing's done. So I just feel like a target, and it's very easy for me to be treated like that and turn around and then say, okay, well, I'm going to just report to work, do what I'm going to do. And when I'm off, I'm off. I felt immediately after it happened to me, I felt like just stop doing everything that I do after working hours for my students. But then I thought to myself, why am I going to do that? You know, I'm not hurting anyone else but my own kids. So that's what I meant about having to sign 30 minutes personal leave, just because I decided to kill two birds with one stone. And it just felt like I was being targeted. Like every move I make now is being watched, and they're just finding any little thing to write down now.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry for that. You know, I'm very truly sorry for that happening. And I hope, Mr. Superintendent, whatever school you're at, Mrs. Rojas, that maybe somebody, you know, either Superintendent Erica, you know, I see you're here, or somebody, Mr. Superintendent, this has to stop. I mean, if these people, it's already bad enough that they're being segregated, you know, but now being harassed and bullied because you're not taking the, you know, vaccine is another story. And I know, Mr. Fernandez, you can put out a memorandum out there to, you know, if anybody feels harassed, that they should be able to call your office or any of your assistant superintendents to call them if they feel they're being harassed. So I hope you can address that, Mr. Superintendent. And for the sake of time, you know, I'm just going to try and get through these questions as quick as I can. And you did mention, Mr. Superintendent, that you will make sure that anyone who has to take off to take any testing, that it's at no fault of their own, whether they have to take these tests or they're waiting for approval from public health because they have not provided that information, which is so disappointing since public health, you know, I mean, we're almost in 2 years into this, 2 years that you could have come up with a plan and prepare yourself for something like this. School was about to come back, you know, students were about to come back to school. I mean, it's something that was foreseen, but not to plan this out to, you know, make sure that those who want to be exempt, those who do not want to take the vaccine, that they had options to do so. But now they're waiting around for applications or documents and paper. This is kind of unacceptable. Kind of, it is unacceptable. With DOE, do you have an attorney, Mr. Fernandez, that directly works with you?
Yes, ma'am, we do have an attorney.
Okay, one or two attorneys? One?
We have a couple, we have two.
Two attorneys. And with these attorneys, can they assist you in any way to answer some of the questions that many of these constituents who came tonight to spend their whole evening to ask questions that you weren't sure on because you're trying to find the law that guides you, or, you know, has your attorneys started to look into?
No, I'm not confused about the law. If there are questions about the law, then I'm noting that there are questions, but I'm not currently unclear or researching any law, any of the existing law, I guess. I want to make that clear. I don't have any, my lawyers are not working on interpreting the legal basis for the governor's mandate.
Your board oversees DOE, and you are basically, you answer to the board, correct?
Correct. As a, they are, yes, yes, essentially, yes.
You answer to the board. And what's the perspective onto the board with regards to these mandates that individuals who do not want to be vaccinated and still having them in school? What's their perspective? Had the board had an opportunity to talk about this?
We keep the board informed and have kept them informed of the governor's executive order directive and our position relative to enforcing that directive.
But
or implementing that directive. The board has not taken a formal action on it, but they are well aware and they are well aware of the requirements.
They're well aware of the requirements, but are they, you know, coming forward with maybe trying to reach out to the governor to exempt DOE from this mandate? I mean, has support, knowing that there's many of the other teachers who you might be losing?
I think they would be similar to the legislature. If they want to hold a work session on it, they're certainly able to, but we have kept them abreast. They have not opted to take any action contrary to the executive order, but I'm sure that I think Dr. McNich might be on But I'm sure they're, aware of this discussion, and if they so choose to, to change a course of action, I'm sure they would be able to act within their authority. Now, of course, yeah, and then if they did, then we would discuss, of course, what the legal status of the mandates of what we're doing to implement it, and this same discussion with how it's impacting our employees.
Yeah, and hence the legal perspective. Okay, so I hope that that's something. If Mr. McNitch, if he's not, then I'll text him to ask what the board is doing. Try and change those. It might not be able to change the law or the executive order right away, but it sure can give a message to the governor about the issues that they're having at DOE with this 148 teachers. And I probably can't even count how many are forced to take the vaccine who didn't want to, but they need to, put food on the table and a roof over their head. So there might be many of those individuals, but another one is with regards to giving back leave. You mentioned that earlier, that you'll do that. The numbers, Dio, who's your attorney? I've got that one. Okay, but this is for public health. Hi, Chuma. I promise I'll try and be as short as I can. Okay, Chuma, why weekly testing? Why weekly testing? Why not monthly now? We're starting to see that the quarantines are no longer 14 days now. Now they're going down to 5 days. They're slowly going further down, even in some countries. Now, the Philippines now is only at 5 days when they were at 14 just a couple weeks ago or about a week ago. So we're starting to see this trend of moving down. So why is it that it has to, when are you guys going to start lifting restrictions and lessen all these requirements?
Yeah, Madam Senator, like I responded to Senator Nelson, the MedOps team, which is the technical team, we're still following what is going on and then making recommendations. So we are aware of the numbers going down, man.
Right, and Chuma, just a guesstimate, off the top of your head, and you've been doing this for almost 2 years now. What do you think? Are we starting to see a change that could happen as far as lifting restrictions here?
Yeah, ma'am, while we are seeing the numbers go down, we're also seeing threats and rising cases around us, with the new variant Omicron. So we are considering all those in making decisions. So recently, the international travel requirement was changed on Monday by CDC because of the new threat. So while we are looking at our numbers locally, we're also looking at what is happening around us. So those actually inform our decisions. But like I mentioned earlier, the medical ops, which is a technical team, we're still reviewing the data that we have to guide us in making recommendations, man.
Okay, thank you, Chuma. Antoinette, again, thank you for being here. Some of the questions that were brought up and regarding, just the paperwork and the documentation sitting on somebody's desk waiting to get answers. Antoinette, do you involve DOE on a weekly basis, on a, every 3 days? How much do you involve DOE with the process?
Senator, we don't involve DOE. The applicant submits it to us and we process it and we route it to our leadership for approval if it's religious exemption. Unfortunately, I know those have been put on hold. Our director was looking for additional guidance, clarification. I mentioned earlier there is a draft guidance memo that's coming to provide more clarity on the request for exemptions. On the medical exemption part, we submit it to the interim chief medical officer. He reviews it and his final disposition, and then we give it directly back to the applicant, ma'am.
Okay, I appreciate it, Annette. If there's more, communication between you and DOE on these documents that are brought to DOE, especially when people have been waiting for so long to get an answer. I know at the very beginning, it was someone brought up the issue about the phone line. I think it was Mrs. Bamba earlier, Patty Bamba. And, I've had family members too that were trying to contact public health. And I know this was about a year ago when it was really, full and heavy, but I don't think these, I mean, things have calmed down just a bit, you know, a little bit more. So I'm hoping that just that call out today, somebody talking about how the phones are not answered. I went through the same thing, you know, so, and friends of mine have gone through the same thing. They cannot get through to public health, you know, so I hope, Annette, you make a mental note to bring that up in one of your meetings, you know, at public health, that this was a complaint that was brought in by not only Patty Bamba, but myself as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks, Annette. Public health, phone lines. Okay, we've got how many times you meet, you don't do that, okay. Okay, pretty much trying to figure out how we can resolve this issue and definitely find a way to channel these concerns directly to the superintendent, because earlier today, when I heard you speaking, when somebody had a question about documents getting to you, Mr. Superintendent, you said it probably hasn't gotten to your level yet. I just hope there's more of an open door, you know, perspective at your office, especially during a time of COVID when there's so much anxiety going on. And, you know, it seems everyone who was speaking tonight had so much passion, I mean, tears coming out of their eyes. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot more people out there, just like everyone who is here to testify tonight. I'm pretty sure there is, especially when you have 148 people having to be tested every week. That's a lot of people. So I appreciate all the hard work you're doing, Mr. Superintendent. I really do, Chima and Antoinette. I greatly appreciate, but most especially I appreciate those who's coming out to speak up. I know it's very difficult because many times you know, you can't mention other people's name because they're afraid. But the only way to make change, is what you're doing here today. You know, Ms. Santos, you know, Chargalov, Patty, everybody who came to testify, Rojas. You're making the change today, and I greatly appreciate your testimonies. And thank you, and we'll be staying on top of this. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I hope that this doesn't stop. This is not going to be the last roundtable on this, because I'm sure there are more people after listening to this will come out soon to discuss, and maybe hopefully an idea, you know, to help those teachers to stay in their classrooms. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taitegui. Okay, we're gonna wrap up this roundtable hearing, but before we wrap it up, I just want to mention some of the items that we need to follow up on. And the first one, of course, is the CT request for the past 18 months with Mr. Chima. Ms. Norma Jean Santos, if you could provide our office with the document that you received from your nurse at Southern High School, so we can get some clarity on that. Then also working with the technical team, Mr. Chima, to see what are you looking at, or DPHSS will be anticipating. What will be the threshold for the population of vaccination, of population being vaccinated, and if you can change the policy of the weekly testing, and to perhaps, I would also like to request, because I don't know when or how soon they're going to have the exemption, religious exemption or medical exemption approved through Department of Administration. I don't think we were given a direct timeline. So we will follow up with DOA on that. But I would like to request that you speak with your team and your leadership there and see what you can do to postpone those, the testing requirements for those that are waiting for their medical exemption or religious exemption, and even to go a little bit further and to see if we can remove the testing requirement or test them every once a month. Like Senator Tello had a great idea, and you know, about the how we're starting to loosen the restrictions, and so weekly testing for our teachers, especially putting them through that kind of duress. Really, we need to do something about that. And if we can postpone the testing and also even have the testing every quarter or something like that, if that's still necessary. If we still see the prevalence of COVID and the situation changes, then we can adjust. But I think we need to make something amenable for them. So when do you meet with your technical team again, Mr. Chima?
So,
Every Monday, you said?
So the technical team, which is a MedOps team, we
Mhm.
meet regularly to discuss,
Okay.
the pandemic.
Do
But
you have a
what
scheduled time?
no, it depends. We can meet. We normally meet on Mondays and
Oh,
I think Fridays. Yes. But I wanted to point you to something, ma'am. I think the question about the CT value, I really don't understand what he's asking for, because the CT value is just the measurement and it is set standard. So for those machines, like I mentioned, those are the thresholds. So anything lower than that actually tells you the viral load of that person. So if it's at 40, it tells you the person is positive. But if it's below 28, that tells you the viral load is very high and the transmissibility is high. And those are the ones that we send to CDC for genome sequencing. So his question is not scientific. So that's why I'm asking him what exactly he wants, because those are set by the machine and the machines are calibrated and maintained. So it is not manually moved around. So the question, I have addressed it by saying, the gene expert is 40 and the AB 7500 is 44. So anything below the threshold of 40 and 44 actually tells you is a positive result. Anything higher than 44 is a negative. So that is the threshold for the machine to measure the virus in the specimens. So for the 300,000 tests that we've conducted since the beginning of the pandemic, it has been the same standard. So I don't understand his questions, because I've already
okay.
asked it, ma'am. Yes.
Our office will get clarification and we'll send you the letter describing it. I understand what you're saying. I understand. So I'll see, we'll reach out to him and see really the specific of his question, because I get it. And then Superintendent, you brought up that if you are unvaccinated but contracted COVID-19, public health guidance is that testing is not required until after 90 days. So Mr. Chima, if that's the case, then I don't know why we are requiring those that are testing negative for COVID-19 to be tested weekly if they're not vaccinated. So can we just please really work with the technical team to address this issue? There's not the consistency in the logic that's put behind these mandates in this sense, in some of these mandates. And also there's no uniformity in the agencies. And so if you could just please talk to your MedOps group and see what we can do for these issues. And then the last one, I think that was it. And then we're going to come up and follow up with you next week. Mr. Chima, we'll give you a call and maybe we can arrange a meeting sometime to see what you are able to come up with the technical team and see if there's anything that we can do to help you move forward in that retrospect.
Noted, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So at this time, I just want to thank all of the stakeholders, all of the teachers, the parents that came out, especially those of you that stayed late. Thank you, Shane, and also Miss Kim, who's the nurse at GDOE. And Miss Annette Uggan, thank you very much, Mr. Chima, Mr. Superintendent. And thank you all the other teachers, Brian, who gave testimony, and Miss Norma Jean Santos, Miss Milia Faisen. We'll keep you in our prayers and we hope that you're doing okay. Okay, I think that's all of them. And thank you, senators, for joining me. And Miss Bernadine, thank you very much. I'm going to adjourn this roundtable hearing.
Madam Chair, can I just ask Superintendent Fernandez, you mentioned there is a meeting coming up for a public hearing regarding the vaccination of children. what day is that scheduled for?
Yeah, you'll see the information coming out over the next couple of days, but the town hall that's scheduled is in partnership with Public Health, and it is Friday and 6 o'clock via Zoom. And we will be pushing out to get parental input. I think as we said before, I think we do want to provide information regarding the vaccines for children 5 to 11. But in order for us to assist with that effort, we're going to need parental support and input. So that's what we're aiming to get this Friday.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate if we can get a copy of that Zoom link. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We'll send it out. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Superintendent. And Mr. Superintendent, you had several of these public forums when you were going back to school, or trying to understand how the community felt when we would do some programs within GDOE during the time of COVID. So I hope that it's just not one and done. I hope we continue the conversation of this vaccination for the children. I'm getting a lot of feedback from parents that they don't want to be mandated to vaccinate their children. They're very reluctant to, especially because of some of the unknowns that exist with this vaccine that is early on. So please do not move forward with anything in the near future as far as mandating, unless you get especially at DPHSS, we get full public input on this situation. Thank you.
Ma'am, if I can speak regarding the town hall meeting
Sure,
with
Ms.
Public
Cruz.
Health. The intent is to provide information, and so we're getting doctors to come in, as well as Public Health and DOE, to answer questions relative to vaccinating our 5 to 11-year-olds. We do have a survey that is going out to our elementary school students for their parents to fill out, just what questions they may have if they're interested in getting their child vaccinated. So we do have a survey that that will be going out, and we would get that information by Friday. And so by Friday evening, the presenters such as Dr. Bob Leon Guerrero from Public Health and and his team will be able to answer questions that parents may have relative to vaccinating their children.
That's good. So it's an education on the vaccination.
Yeah, it basically it is informational for the vaccination, so that parents can make an informed decision if they do decide to vaccinate their child.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, with that being said, we are going to adjourn this roundtable hearing. The committee will continue to accept written testimony for the next 10 working days. Testimonies may be sent via email to Senator T.C. Nelson at guamlegislature.org or delivered to the office of Senator Telena Cruz Nelson at Suite 202 Alpha 173, Espino Avenue, Hagåtña, Guam 96910. A recording of today's hearing will be available on YouTube at the Guam Legislature Media. And this concludes our virtual roundtable hearing. It is now 10:45 in the evening. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night, and God bless you, and Merry Christmas.
Same to you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.